Do you guys remember this crazy Lieutenant Furman from Melvindale, Michigan Police Department? He may actually be on the chopping block for a reason that you would have never expected, but it's something I've touched on in the past. We're going to have a little bit of fun talking about it. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. I have to give props to Fairlane32. You've seen him in the comments section. He's got all kinds of wild things to say. He brought this to my attention a couple weeks ago, and I've talked about this before because everybody's always like, well, we need more education for police officers. We need, qualified immunity has to go away and all that. And all that stuff is important. But I've said a couple times, and you may have heard me say it in the videos, that it's really the insurance companies that will make the difference if a difference is going to be made in the police accountability space. And this story came out of Melvindale, Michigan that sort of reinforced that point. So if you're not familiar with my idea that insurance can drive the bus to police accountability, I encourage you to sit back, let's watch this news story, and then I'll pop in a couple times and talk about how this stuff works and see if we can put it on your radar. Maybe we start pushing our local government to be harsher when it comes to this sort of stuff, and maybe we can make some changes. So the news story comes to us from WXYZ TV in Detroit, Michigan, and let's hear what they have to say about what's going on in Melvindale.
Melvindale is a small town with growing problems tonight, among them lawsuits against its police department.
That's right. Without any of the cases being settled, they're already coming at a cost to taxpayers and driving insurance companies away.
Tonight, 7 investigator Ross Jones is revealing how it's all impacting the city's bottom line.
There's one police officer that seems to have a hostage other police officers in Melvindale, up and including the chief of police.
David Robinson spent 13 years working for the police and the rest of his career suing them. Today, as an attorney specializing in police misconduct cases, he has 2 lawsuits against the same officer in Melvindale, Lieutenant Matthew Furman.
This guy has gotten away with things over and over again.
Hands behind your back! You do it! He got me!
The first lawsuit was brought on behalf of Dracar Williams, who said Furman repeatedly tased him following a traffic stop last year.
Stop moving!
And then Robinson sued Furman on behalf of Alicia Cook, a mother who was sitting in a school parking lot with her daughters when Furman stopped her over an expired tab and then tased her too.
Furman mocked and taunted her after he tased her.
You made me afraid for my safety. I was terrified from you.
I mean, that's atrocious. It really is.
When you look at these videos of the conduct that took place by some of these officers, it's reprehensible.
And while the city has been on the receiving end of a number of lawsuits recently, it was a sharp uptick in police misconduct claims that had the attention of city officials at a recent council meeting. In addition to the 2 lawsuits filed against Furman, a 3rd lawsuit was filed just last month by a current Melvindale corporal alleging racial and religious harassment throughout the department.
The demands from the plaintiff's attorneys are exceeding $4 million for the first 3 claims.
The litany of lawsuits has caused the city's insurance premiums to soar, up from $510,000 last year to $633,000 this year, a 24% increase. That's on top of last year's increase of 28%. As a result, said the city's insurance broker, Melvindale needs to do something to show insurers it's worth the risk.
What we need to be able to do is communicate to insurance companies that something has been done to review, something has been done to update, something has been done to educate and train. De-escalation obviously is something that needs to be looked at.
This is the thing about what this gentleman just said. These are all the things that, like, if Jeff Gray comes to your town and stands on your sidewalk holding his very threatening sign, and you have no choice but to arrest him for the fighting words of absolute silence or the phraseology, God bless the homeless vets, that he demands when he sues these places, fix this stuff, train these people, get them to conduct themselves within the confines of the Constitution. That's all anybody really wants. But the point is, the insurance is what will change everything. And you notice in the very first part of that clip, that was the city attorney talking about how bad the police officers were and how bad specifically the conduct of Furman has been, and that he's been able to get away with and still have a job. You never hear city attorneys taking that position at a council meeting. Just think about that. Most of the time, if the city attorney takes a position like that, they take it in private with the chief of police or the mayor. They don't take it like that at a council meeting. Think about the position of the city attorneys when you watch CJ Grisham at a meeting, or some of these guys that go and do the town council meetings. Most of the time, the city attorney is right up there with the rest of them, having no damn clue what's going on. This guy was pretty livid, and it appears to me that his recommendations and his counsel has fallen on deaf ears, and you can see the frustration in the way that he responds. If you follow the math, though, 28% increase last year means that in 2023, their insurance premiums were just under $400,000, and they rose to $510,000 last year, and now they're up to $633,000. So it's getting to the point where the town's going to go bankrupt because they can't afford to pay for the insurance. And somewhere along the way, the insurance is going to say, we're not renewing you next year, but you can't stop getting sued because you can't get rid of this one asshole that keeps violating people's rights. And if you're not willing to do that, we're not going to insure you. And then they're going to be up shit creek without a paddle. And then we might finally get rid of this guy. Now, if all of that looks familiar to you, it's probably because you've either seen my video on this guy, or I think John Bryan has done a couple different videos on this guy. I consider him among the worst police officers in America. He is completely unwilling to accept any responsibility for his actions. In fact, let me throw you back to part of the video that I did before, where he's given an interview in response to some questions that the reporter is throwing at him. But just listen to the questions, and how out of touch he is in the way that he responds to the questions.
Turn around, hands on the roof.
Can you tell him the cops? Can you tell?
I said hands on the roof. Stop, or you will get taser.
Why do you think that throughout your career you have continued to be accused of excessive force?
I think I'm very proactive, and I think I'm involved in a lot more scenes and incidents.
It would be hard to find a police officer in Melvindale more polarizing than Lieutenant Matthew Furman. In his 12 years on the job, he's been promoted and celebrated, suspended and criminally charged, fired and brought back.
Do you have the temperament to be a police officer?
I do.
A lot of people don't think so. Some people in your own department, in fact.
And I've had a lot of people tell me I'm a great police officer.
The slew of allegations against him that he adamantly denies can be found in citizen complaints, lawsuits, police reports, and depositions. Like in 2016, when Furman pulled over a mother driving her 2 small children. Her vehicle had no car insurance, and Furman ordered her car towed. Instead of letting the woman wait for her ride, she said, Furman dragged her out of her car and onto the ground, forcing her over the vehicle's hood, all in front of her children. Furman would be suspended for 3 days, but the suspension was later overturned by the Public Safety Commission. Just a few months after that, he would detain a robbery suspect who said Furman slammed his head into the police car while he was handcuffed. A lieutenant reported that he witnessed this and told the man he would not sweep that incident under the rug. Another officer there said under oath that Furman went way over the line and split the man's head open. Furman told us he didn't cause the injury at all. It was the people the man was stealing from. He said the 2 officers didn't see what they thought they saw.
They're both lying.
I'm not going to call them liars, but I'm going to say their perspective was probably off because they were halfway down the block.
Furman says that an outside investigation cleared him of any misconduct and that he ultimately faced no discipline.
Prosecutors say a Melvindale police sergeant completely mishandled a call here in this neighborhood.
In 2019, Furman would be charged by Wayne County's prosecutor, accused of assault after he responded to a disorderly conduct complaint. While there, an intoxicated man would accuse Furman of throwing him down a flight of stairs.
The defendant used coarse language, threw a food bowl across a kitchen.
Furman again denied the charges, saying the man fell on his own. The prosecutor would dismiss the assault charge in exchange for Furman pleading no contest to willful neglect of duty. He would be fired over the incident, but an arbitrator overturned his termination, saying the city offered no concrete evidence that Furman threw the man down the stairs.
Watch his door.
2 years later, Furman was part of a high-speed police chase. The suspect had stolen a vehicle, police said, after striking an officer. And after his vehicle crashed, he fled on foot before officers surrounded him. As officers tried to subdue the man, a Dearborn officer's body cam caught Furman repeatedly stomping on the man's leg as multiple officers look on. A Dearborn officer would report Officer Furman's force to Melvindale PD. Furman said the man was resisting officers as they tried to handcuff him, so he used the stomps as a form of pain compliance. Furman was not disciplined.
You're never going to rid America of law enforcement. I know that a large majority of my audience would be happy if we never had a police officer policing the streets of America for the rest of our lives. That's just never going to happen. There's as much of a likelihood of that happening as there is that Americans are going to give up their rights to guns. It's just not going to happen. Law enforcement is uniquely a part of our culture, and it is a fascination with a large majority of the United States citizens. People have, as we've reviewed in our old Cops series that we did a couple months back, where I went through a couple of old episodes of Cops and just kind of looked at it just to see how the times have changed. Our obsession with law enforcement, first response, emergency services, that kind of stuff, it's not going away. People are fascinated by cops, and love them or hate them, they take a position somewhere along this continuum, but either way, they're watching. And the point is, that's never going to change. You're never going to get rid of Americans' love for law enforcement. I know that it doesn't feel that way in this space, but I'm telling you, if you step outside of YouTube or even step into some of the bootlicking chambers of YouTube, you will find that there is a large majority of American people who support the police and believe that you should not have the right to treat them a certain way. There are a lot of American citizens that believe that you should trade your rights and that they're happy doing that in order to show a certain amount of respect to law enforcement. I don't feel that way. I'm just telling you, a lot of Americans feel that way. We are in the minority when it comes to this sort of stuff.
So that night, the city council voted unanimously to hire a third-party investigative firm to look into the police department, how it runs, and how it disciplines its officers. Chief Robert Canale was at the meeting, welcoming the probe and promising a tighter ship going forward.
I haven't had the ability to hold people, officers, accountable for what's going on.
On the job for just over a year, Canale said the understaffed agency was dealt crisis after crisis since he took over, from responding to multiple train derailments last May, to an officer being shot and killed in July, to his own cancer diagnosis back in December. The chief's received treatment and is now back to work, he says, and insists things will be different going forward.
I am going to take control. People are going to be written up.
Furman, for his part, remains on paid administrative leave while the Wayne County prosecutor reviews a warrant request following the tasing of Drakkar Williams.
Our citizens deserve better, and the financial ruin the city could face as a result of inaction is simply not appropriate. We can't take that risk.
Now, Lieutenant Furman did not return my phone call for this story, but by text he declined to comment on the lawsuits against the police department. He did stress that other elected officials in the city have been on the receiving end of lawsuits recently, which is true. But according to the city's insurance broker, it's those claims against the police department that are most responsible for that increase in premiums. And it was 24% this year, 28% the year before in any community, but certainly a small community like that, that is a lot to stomach.
And it seems like there's a lot on that police chief, especially after his cancer diagnosis,
Yeah,
and now he's coming back to sort of wrangle
He's got a full
everything.
plate for sure.
And also what they're losing in premiums, they could have hired more.
Yeah,
officers.
that could have done a lot of good for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ross.
All right.
So it's no surprise to anybody that when they contacted Furman, he was playing a little game of whataboutism. Well, what about this person that got sued? It's not just me. No, it wasn't you that got arrested and convicted of a crime that you later withdrew your plea on, and they had to fire him and bring him back and got his job back. I mean, this guy has been a menace to the city of Melvindale, both internally and externally to the citizens for the majority of the time that he's been on the police department. But this is what I mean. This is how this stuff works. Think about your car insurance. Let's draw some parallels here. The city of Melvindale hires a person who's a new police officer. That's kind of the same as having like a stable policy that you've had with, say, Progressive or somebody for years and years with your auto policy. And then you have a kid that becomes an eligible age to drive, right? So now that kid's going to be covered on your auto policy. Well, your premium is going to be a little bit high, but you're going to get the benefit of the doubt because, you know, you've had a good driving record. You don't have any accidents. You don't have any issues that they need. So they're going to give some happy medium between what they should charge the kid if they were on their own and what they would charge you if the kid wasn't on your policy. There's going to be somewhere in the middle. Well, they're going to do the same thing with police officers. So a new probationary patrol officer, you know, if the bulk of your department has been there 4, 5, 6 years, there's no major claims and nothing going on, whatever, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt, and they're not going to raise your premium too much from a new patrolman coming on, even though they're new and they don't really know what they're doing. Well, as you start to make mistakes and people's rights get violated, it's not any different than your teenager catching a couple traffic tickets or you catching a DUI or having an accident. All of a sudden, Progressive's looking at you side-eyed, kind of like, whoa, I don't know whether, you know, if we're going to even insure this person anymore. But if we're going to, we're definitely going to raise their premium. And so they raise it once and, oh my God, more accidents and more tickets and more DUIs. Okay, we're going to raise it again. At some point, they're just going to say, we're not going to renew your auto policy anymore. And then if you can't get insurance, you can't drive. And so that's what's going to happen with this. And therein lies the hope of police reform and accountability. If these insurance companies would band together and just say, look, we can change this. They want to raise it enough because they still want to have the profit motive and they want to be able to spread the risk. I mean, their whole job is to spread the risk across a class of people, right? So they want to spread the risk. They want people to pay the premiums, but they also get to a point where it's like, okay, it's too risky. So if you band together with insurance and you start attacking this from an underwriting perspective and say, we are no longer going to cover a blanket policy for the police department. We're going to have individual officers are going to have to carry their own insurance. If they're new patrol people or if they're high risk people, they're going to have to carry their own liability insurance. And good luck going out and finding your own insurance if you're Furman and you've got 3 lawsuits or whatever and a history like he has. You know, that's kind of like trying to find your own car insurance when you got 3 DUIs, right? So it's like if that stuff starts happening, it might have nothing to do with social justice that we see the reason for the change. It might finally be something that happens that's completely apolitical to everyone's surprise. It might just be like a fiscal policy thing where it's like, my goodness, it just makes so much more sense. The freaking city's going to go bankrupt if we keep allowing this to happen. Because once the insurance is gone, guys, the taxpayers are on the hook. And then people started voted out, baby. We ain't doing this. We're not paying for this. You've mismanaged this city until no insurance carrier will now offer us insurance based on your leadership. You're out, Mayor. You're out, Chief. All of that stuff starts to become a domino effect. In closing, I realize that qualified immunity is a serious issue. And I always referred back to this video that the civil rights lawyer did like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was just a great video that talked about what actually happens when qualified immunity gets stripped. And the truth is that like 99% of the time, the insurance company still steps in and indemnifies those officers. So even where the court says, yeah, you're not entitled to qualified immunity, the insurance company steps up and pays that bill. So it never really affects the police officer in a way that touches their pocketbook. And so that's why insurance is so important, because if the insurance companies start saying, we're going to pick and choose who we're going to cover under your policy, that's going to change the whole game. So anyway, I just thought this was a really interesting exploration of the sort of impact that insurance could have, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. I hope you got something from it. I hope you'll give it some thought. I'll probably write a follow-up blog on this over on Substack, because I do think it's an interesting opportunity that is not political and is not ideological in any way. It's not about social justice. It's not about right or left. It's not about anything other than like, how long can you spend more than you bring in on claims, right? I mean, there has to just be at some point like a budget to consider, and that really has nothing to do with politics. So it might be the only way. It might be the best way forward. So just wanted to put it on your radar and see what you think about it. Anyway, come over to Substack, check it out. It's absolutely free to join. You can join on a paid tier if you want to, but that's only for people who want to support the channel monetarily. I don't put anything on Substack that people have to pay for. If you don't want to come to Substack, but you'd like to support the channel monetarily, I'll leave my Venmo and PayPal links both here on the screen as well as in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Let me know what you think about this idea of the insurance company changing the whole game. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.